Hello, my fellow giant vegetable growing enthusiasts. It's Chad from Colorado Giants, member of the RMGVG, which would be the Rocky Mountain Giant Vegetable Growers. Go to coloradopumpkins.com to join our club. Coming to you from the garage today, it's April the 9th, it's Easter, and I am starting my seeds today. 2023 giant pumpkin season is starting now. Let's talk about it. So before we get too in depth with this video, make sure you hit that subscribe button. It's really easy to do. It's right down here or right over there. And when you do that, a little bell's gonna come up. Hit that bell notification so that way you'll get a telephone call from YouTube. When I upload a video, they call and say, hey, Chad just uploaded a new video. You should go watch it so that you stay up to date with how my quest for a 2,000-pound pumpkin in 2023 is going. I suppose the first thing that we should talk about today is the seeds themselves. What seeds am I growing? Well, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked. I'm growing 2 pumpkins this year as well as 2 watermelons. I want to do something different this year that I've never done. I really am going to prefer / try to grow the same pumpkin for both of them. And I want to do some things differently between the 2 plants. And though 2 plants is not necessarily the most ideal scientific method of doing things, I'm going to try and hone it in. But the primary plant that I want to try and grow this year is my 1643 new. This was the 2350 Ginger, which is a super orange pumpkin that has gone heavy in the past for everybody and went heavy for me too, actually, as well as the 2365 Wolf. In 2022, the 2365 Wolf became, I'm almost positive, the most successful rookie seed ever, / just probably seed ever, growing the most 2,000-pound pumpkins right out of the get-go. So it's a killer seed. The 2350 Ginger is a very popular seed because it grows huge, orange, and typically heavy pumpkins. Oddly enough, I was the only one that made this cross last year. So it's been a very popular seed. I only have a few left. Additionally, it wins 6% heavy for me, which anything heavy in Colorado is really awesome. I mean, that's the long and short of it right there. If you have a heavy pumpkin in Colorado, those genetics were great. You were doing something right. Just it's hard to get pumpkins to go heavy in Colorado. So if they do, it's a good one. Additionally, that pumpkin was super orange. It was a beautiful pumpkin. Some say it should have won the Howard Dill, Jason. But I have reservations about growing my own seed, especially a 1643 seed, when there's much bigger and much better seeds out there, like, you know, the 2350 or the 2365. But I'm going to trust the genetics of this seed. I grew it. It did very well. All of these genetics that go into this seed did really well. Last year, both of those plants that made this pumpkin did really well. So by all stretches of the imagination, this seed should also do very well. But with that being said, sometimes just stuff happens. Maybe I don't like how the plants are growing. They have some sort of weird funky funk going on with them. Because of that, I'm also going to grow the 2350 Ginger. This is an 1885 Werner times a sibling plant. What that means is that it was the same plant or the same seed, but a different plant, and it's essentially self. So those 1885 genetics, which grew the current world record and also grew that 2,900-pound pumpkin that unfortunately split while it was growing. It was doing 70 plus pounds per day for like 2 or 3 weeks, which is insane. You know, this is also a genetic powerhouse seed. So even though it's a new seed and it's unproven, everything else behind it is proven and it should do just fine. That way, if I have an issue with any of my own seeds, this one is not a bad backup to have at all. On to the watermelons. I'm going to grow 2 different watermelons. I'll plant them in the middle and the very end, grow them out side to side. Each one will have 150-ish square foot or so. I'm going to grow the 306 vial as well as the 341.5 vial. Those are just honestly the biggest pumpkin or the biggest watermelon seeds that I had lying around. So that's why I chose them. One very important thing to keep in mind when it comes to starting seeds, everybody has a different way of doing it, and those ways that other people use, how they start their seeds, there's nothing wrong with that. This is how I start my seeds. It works for me. If you like this, if you think it'll work for you, try to replicate it or do something similar. You can also watch any number of the YouTube people out there, or the giant pumpkin, giant vegetable growing people that are on YouTube now, putting out information. Watch their videos too, watch my video, come up with something that works well for you or something that you think will work well for you, and then go from there. Again, this is not the only way to do it. It's something that, like everything else I do, I overdo. I have tents and lights and all sorts of stuff. You don't have to get wacky with it. Just make sure it gets done. And let's talk about how I do it. The number one thing when you're starting your seeds is to keep track of everything. I put these little plant stakes in here, so I know that this is the 341.5 vial, and it was started on April the 9th. Those tags, those labelings are going to stay with everything. You don't want to mix up your seeds. It's very easy to do so, and once you lose track of them, you have no clue what is what. So always make sure you keep track of your seeds. When I soak my seeds, I put them in warm water for probably 2.5, 3 hours, somewhere around there. And I don't file them. A lot of people will file their seeds. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just something that I've gotten away from the last few years because honestly, I don't think that it's 100% necessary. Would I change my tune if I had a 2365 Wolf that failed to come out of the seeds because the shell was too tough? You're darn right I would. But it's not something that you have to do. If you want to do it, all you have to do is take some fine sandpaper, sand down the edges of your seed so that it's a little bit easier for that baby plant to bust out of the seed when the time comes. Something that you should consider doing before you start your primary seeds is start some test plants. So I had never started any of my 16, I don't even remember the number, my 1643 seeds. I never started any of them, so it was a bit of an unknown as to if they would grow or not. They should grow, they should be fine, so as such I started them. These plants are probably, let's see, I started them on last Tuesday, so Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. These are 5 days old. Coming up, that first true leaf right there is just starting to form. So now I know that my seeds will germinate. I know that my method is good, and I would have worked out any kinks before I started with the real seeds. I'll actually keep those plants. Those will now be my backup plants. Should I have a catastrophic failure or something goes wrong, it's always better to have more plants. And on that note, I'm going to start 7 pumpkin seeds. So never start less or just an even amount of what you want to plant. If you want to plant 2 giant pumpkin plants, or even 1, if you want to plant 1 giant pumpkin plant, I would start 4 seeds. From those 4 seeds, you might have 1 that doesn't pop up at all. So now you're down to 3. Then take your best 2 plants, put those in the ground, and whichever one you think is the better plant, that's the one you want to keep. So give yourself options. So with that being said, I'm starting 7. From those 7, I'll plant 4, and eventually we'll whittle our way down to 2. So I have lots of extra plants because I don't want to have any of these not germinate, wait around for 6-7 days. By the time that I realize something's wrong or whatever happens, you're a week behind. So don't let yourself get in that position where you're behind the 8 ball, struggling to keep up and push your plants harder than they should be pushed to make up that lost time. So let's talk about what I use to start my seeds. I have a grow tent. I got this off of Craigslist for like 15 bucks. It's about 4 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot. And inside of there, I have an 8 bulb T5 light. So it's nothing super duper fancy, no fancy LEDs or high pressure sodiums or anything like that. This is probably, you know, very reminiscent to like a retail store. It's just those long tubes, nothing fancy about it. Past that, you need some cups to soak your seeds in, as well as start them. You need some labeling tags. You don't have to have plant ones. You could write on the cups. You could, I don't know, put it on a clothespin. Just do whatever you need to do to keep track of it. Past that, I have two things that are probably a little extra because that's just kind of what I do. I have an Inkbird thermostat right here. Because this is in my garage, I also have a tiny heater you can see right here. This is something that would be used like for your desk to keep your hands warm or your feet warm. So I have this set to, I don't know, probably like 80 degrees. If it drops below, no, that's wrong. 75 degrees. If it drops below 75 degrees, this little heater kicks on. And then if it gets over 75 degrees, I could plug a fan in, but I'm not worried about that because it's not going to get too hot inside of this grow tent, inside of the garage. So this is just an extra layer of protection to keep my plants from freezing, because that would be horrible. During the day and at night, I usually keep this flap closed so it retains heat and just more of reflective to get more light on the plants. But again, this is extra. You don't have to do all of this. A clamp lamp with a bulb over the top of it would be fine, or even in a warm window seal, that would be fine as well. When I start my plants, I also have a heat mat in here. The last several years I've used this incubator, and I've been testing some seeds just with the heat mat, because the incubator is fine, but it's just kind of like one more thing. And actually, before we talk about the next segment, I'm just going to get rid of that. So now that we've talked about the hardscape, the hard good materials that go into starting what I use to start my seeds, I'm going to get on a little bit of a soapbox here about product and purchasing in general. I use this Black Gold seed starting mix, and where I'm going with this is that I bought this from WallaceWow.com. If you don't know, Ron Wallace is the first person to grow a 1-ton pumpkin over 2,000 pounds, and he has a web store where he sells seeds and he sells fertilizers, products and whatnot that are kind of tailored for giant pumpkin growers, but you can grow anything and you can purchase it from Ron. Where I'm going with this is that supporting small business is an awesome thing. Supporting a small business that is as weird and as niche as growing giant pumpkins is even more awesome. And then the best thing too, Ron's prices and product are very comparable and competitive with some of the bigger places out there. But then when you support Ron, you get access to Ron himself. Like I mentioned in my last video that I shot, you know, Ron has been helping me with my seed, with my soil tests, as well as my disease reports, trying to dial that in so I can grow a 2,000-pound pumpkin. And Ron's happy to do that. He'll do emails or a phone call if necessary, but he does those things for people that support him. So am I paying $3 more per bag to buy this from Ron versus Amazon? Probably. Is Amazon going to be able to help me with my Pythium questions and, you know, at what interval should I rotate a systemic versus a contact pesticide? Amazon will have no clue, but Ron Wallace will. And because I'm happy to spend $2 more, and support his business, he will support me as a grower. So in my mind, that's worth it. Hands down, check out RonWallaceWow.com. So now that I'm off of that soapbox, you can either start your seeds with a paper towel method or directly into soil. I always go directly into soil. I use the Black Gold. But in truth, any soil seed starting mixture will work. Again, ronmollswab.com, because it's just a light, fluffy mixture with lots of perlite and moss and stuff. It doesn't clump up. It allows that soil, or allows that seed to take up the moisture, fire out a root, and really start to grow vigorously. Don't add lots of things. Don't add, well, I'm not going to say don't add anything, but don't add fertilizers and all that stuff into your seed starting mixture. You got plenty of time for that. Mark Clemens put it best, years ago from a video that I liked. He's like, don't feed a steak, don't feed a T-bone to a baby. So it's the same thing. Let these plants develop a little bit, then start to hit them with the fertilizer. The only two things that I add to my seed starting mix are beneficial mycorrhiza and beneficial nitrogen fixing bacteria called azos. Those are the only things that I put into the seed starting soil. Somebody woke up from their nap a little early, so he's going to join us. Can you wave hi? Hi. So we got Max now. Hopefully Charlotte's still sleeping. We might pick up the pace on this video though. So I have my seed starting soil mixture in here, as well as a handful of mycorrhiza and azos. I'm also eventually going to add some root shield. That should be here on Monday, but I want to start my seeds today, so I will add that into the plants once I pot them up. And on that note too, this is at the size of where you should pot up your plants. So I'm not sure if we'll do a video on that, but as soon as your leaves pop up, that's when you want to move them up to the next size container. So we're going to mix this around and just get it well mixed. Can you see? Sure. All you want to do, you want to add enough water so that it kind of holds together into a ball. You don't want it super duper saturated, and you definitely don't want it dry, because this is what's going to hold the water that will allow your seed to get started. I might add a hair more mycorrhiza and a hair more azos in here, mix it up a little bit more, and I might be a good father and go make sure my daughter's still sleeping. So be right back. So I checked on everything. I mixed in more mycorrhiza as well as azos. Everything is good in the hood. For my real seeds, I don't use the deli cups, the solo cups. I use these ice cream containers. I got these several years ago. I cut out the bottom of them. I flipped them upside down, and I drilled some holes in what would be the lid. And this is how I start my seeds. And I do this because I want the roots to grow, and it's easier to take this off like so, rather than just kind of pull it out. So in my mind, I can slide this off, or sometimes I'll cut these and I can peel it off, and I leave my root ball relatively intact. So I kind of put my hand over it, I scoop some in.
And keep it in there forever?
Keep it in there, well, for probably 5 to 7 days, son.
No.
And then that's really all you need to do. Once you have that done, you take your stake that has the seed. So this will be the 306 vial, giant watermelon seed. Try and get them out with one hand. And then I think you know what to do from there. You pop it in, push it down maybe an inch or so.
Dad, can I see what's in there?
Yeah.
Where did you wear the seed right there?
Yep, seed's right in the top. And that's it. Put it with the pointy end down if you're unsure. Your seeds, pretty much any seed will have a pointy end. The pointy end is where the root comes out of. So point that down. Some people recommend planting them flat, because as the seed stands up, it might shed these seed walls easier. I usually put them at like a 45-degree angle, and I just point it down about an inch. I won't bore you with doing this the 7 or 8 times necessary to do all of them, but I will do one more because Max wants to do one, so why not? You want to do one, right, buddy? Yep, so we'll let Max plant a seed. Let me get a cup all squared away. Probably time to replace these. I've been using these same ones that I prepped for, I don't know, maybe 5 years now. Not 5, 3.
3.
So I got my sign, my little stick, and I'm gonna pick out the seed for you to put in here, okay, buddy?
Okay.
I've got my seeds that have been soaking. So put that pointy end in the dirt. Other way, other way. Do the pointy end first, like that.
Okay, then push it down.
Push it down. There you go, kind of like that. Here, now push it down. Perfect.
Now we just buried it up.
Buried it up. There you go. So easy, a 4-year-old could do it. Right, buddy? So I will rinse and repeat that process. Keep your seeds warm. Keep them high 70s, low 80s for 3 to 5 days. Typically, that's the amount of time it takes them to start sending out roots and growing. As soon as they are fully emerged like this, you want to pot them up into probably at least a 1 or 2 gallon pot, depending upon how long you want them to stay inside versus go out into your pumpkin patch. So that's it. That is how you start a pumpkin seed. What I use, the products, the this, the that, the other thing. That's all I got for you. Thanks for watching. Again, if you like the video, hit the thumbs up, subscribe, comment, and we'll catch you next time. Say bye, Max.
Bye. See you tomorrow.
Have a good one, everybody. See ya.